We're here at E-FWD's Aberdeen event in the Markcliffe Hotel, and I'm speaking to Paul from OceanWinds. We've just been chatting a little bit, both in the tent and out of it, about transmission costs. You said there was a 400% uptick since you signed a CFD just a few years ago. Can you just contextualise that a bit for me?
Yeah, so of course. So certainly at the moment, I think Scotland is really on a cliff edge. Transmission costs are being what I would say is the biggest barrier to offshore wind investment and growth. OceanWinds are now the biggest operator of offshore wind in Scotland. We have an operating project, Moray East, which is just under 1 gigawatts. And when we made a CFD decision and bid, we bid on a basis that transmission costs were at a certain level, and the forecast at that time for the end of this decade compared to the forecast today is now 400% greater. Now certainly that is eroding the value of current projects that are already built under different schemes, but I think more critically what it is doing is creating a further barrier to new projects. And there's two key points here. One is that we are seeing unbelievably high levels. The second point is that we can't forecast where those levels are going. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. There is some clear policy direction from the government through CP 2030, and there is some modifications out there at the moment that I think could make a real benefit, looking at a cap and floor for TNUoS and also looking at amending the security factor. But I think not only is there an impact on investor confidence, there's a secondary impact, is that Scottish projects over the last number of years have brought up CFD clearing prices across the UK, and projects south of the border have benefited from that. But those additional costs have been borne by the consumer. And I think with some of these smart changes through these modifications, the impact on the consumer can be great. It can certainly go into multi-billion pound saving over the next 10, 15 years. And I think that's key. I think we're at that point where something needs to change, because I don't think the status quo no longer is sufficient to help the economic growth in Scotland and certainly offshore wind.
And you've been speaking about being passionately Scottish. I think we're both the type that support Scotland and whoever is playing England. But when it comes to Scottish investment and that gulf in pricing, really, in investment case, and that deterrent for investment with Scottish projects, does that impact where OceanWinds looks for upcoming opportunities?
I think it actually has an impact on all developers. Certainly at this moment in time, I'm very passionately Scottish. I'd like to see, I think we're on the precipice of a real golden opportunity that Scotland can grow, but certainly by devaluing Scottish assets, it makes it much easier for developers to go elsewhere. Now, there is some very, very good policy direction, as we've talked about, around CP 2030, around CFD reform. However, there's some other policy direction, such as zonal pricing, that's been discussed, that I think would act in complete opposite to that as well. So certainly, I think what we need to do as an industry is get clear messaging out to the consumers, to the politicians, that creating a stable and well-functioning market here will have tangible benefits across the full Scottish landscape.
And touching on zonal pricing and transmission costs and how that impacts your investment case, we were just speaking about Moray East before we came on camera. We were speaking about the jobs that it created, specifically in areas that have been impacted by other industries migrating away. When it comes to deterring investment in Scotland, that also has a knock-on impact on the tax receipts seen by people that have taken jobs in the offshore wind industry, right?
Yeah, of course. I think something that I'm very proud of is I think OceanWinds have made real transformative changes in small town communities like Fraserburgh and Buckie, where we've had built new purpose-built O&M facilities. The jobs created there have been filled are 96% from the local area. We created 5,000 full-time employment hours during construction at Moray East. What we're looking to do is certainly increase our portfolio, and so is many other developers. I think it is fundamental that without the northeast of Scotland, the government's plans to achieve net zero, to achieve clean power by 2030 can't be met. But there's another point there as well, is that there is already an established competence and skill base within the northeast of Scotland that the renewables industry can basically bounce on. 60% of the staff within O&M are ex-oil and gas. It's something, I think both industries can complement each other, and it's something that without, and I think fundamentally, to be black and white, without further projects you don't get anything. And that means no direct jobs, no indirect jobs through the supply chain, and no further economic growth. And I think we talked about it earlier today in this forum, high-paying jobs in this country contribute to the public services through their own tax. So there's certainly a wide range of benefits by basically learning to take hold of the market in its current state and stimulate growth.
I think that's a massive call to action to end on, isn't it? You know, we need reform. We need to make sure that we keep Scotland appealing for offshore wind projects, and that's something that we need to see before we fall off that cliff edge that you mentioned earlier. Well, thank you very much for joining me, and thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to stay up to date with all the comings and goings of Scottish wind, make sure to stay tuned to Energy Voice and E-FWD.